Prater in the ballgame, KTIK, the ticket. Been waiting a while for this one, Prater, and we get him at the perfect time. Let's head to our Taco Bell hotline and welcome on the Missouri offensive coordinator, a former Boise State wide receiver, and the brother of Super Bowl champion Kellen Moore, head coach of the Saints. That's got a nice ring to it. Kirby, welcome back.
Thank you, Johnny, Prater. Appreciate you guys having me on.
How's that sound? I mean, okay, watching your older brother win a Super Bowl. You guys have done a lot in football in your life as a family. Hadn't checked that box yet, Kirby. What was that like watching Kellen and the Eagles win that sucker?
Yeah, super proud. Bucket list event, incredible accomplishment. New Orleans, right? Wild, pretty active experience there that weekend, and just been really cool to see their perseverance throughout the season, right? 2-2, kind of finding their identity through the bye week and then playing great down the stretch.
What was your experience this Super Bowl like, Kirby, for the family? Were you guys in the stadium, in the suites, sidelines? Like, how did you take in the Super Bowl and watch all that, Kirby?
Yeah, team hotel. The one thing that stood out to me is, right, just the incredible players and coaches within that franchise, right? I'm having breakfast with my dad. It's Super Bowl morning, and there's Saquon Barkley, right, about to play the biggest game of his life, having breakfast with his wife, with his 2 kids. And I think they got a lot of guys who are great teammates, right, that stood out throughout that whole experience. My dad, right, high school football coach, he wanted to be the first guy in the stadium. So we got there pretty early, and we're watching warm-ups and everything, and just trying to, take it all in.
He's Kirby Moore. He's the brother of Kellen Moore. We're talking a little bit of Saints, Eagles, Missouri football, little Boise State football. Kirby, one more quick follow-up on that Super Bowl in terms of just when you were watching it, and then when it was over, and then when the confetti falls, and then Kellen's running around and hiding and doing family things and staying out of the spotlight and letting the Eagles kind of do their thing. What did the family do? How did you guys celebrate immediately short term right there on the field?
Yeah, they're pretty tight on the tickets to get onto the field there. So, right, I think Kellen's wife got 3 tickets. They got 4 kids, so they were in a little bit of a pickle there, and had a couple kids holding each other and got everyone on the field. But then from our viewpoint, obviously could see where he was at. But not everyone was able to get on the field. Once they cleared, was able to walk back with everyone. Kellen's got 4 young kids, so we were giving a lot of piggyback rides, nice. Getting those guys out of there back to the team hotel. And they had a great celebration right there at the stadium. And we were there, fairly late into the evening. And then for me, it was back to reality. There was an Uber picking me up at 5 a.m.
and going right back to work. And that was going to be my next question. The pomp and circumstance is fun, but at the end of the day, you're a football coach, and you're in football nirvana. What did Kirby Moore, before we dive into some more stuff about you, what did Kirby Moore take away from this experience as a football coach?
Yeah, it's definitely an event. Really cool, right? The pregame, the vibe, you feel it. The halftime show. Obviously, there's people of note that you see throughout the evening. And
anybody? Were you starstruck by anybody?
I would say Kevin Hart was a big Eagles fan. He was right behind us, so he was pretty active throughout the whole night.
Nice.
Within the game, I mean, the 4-man, the best pass coverage you can have, right, is a 4-man pass rush that was relentless, right, throughout the night from the Eagles, and then that made it really difficult for the Chiefs, and then playing complimentary football, which the Eagles did a great job finishing on all those drives.
Caught 115 balls as a Boise State wide receiver. Kirby Moore with us now, the Missouri offensive coordinator. We'll get to that in a second, but we could just talk Super Bowl the whole time, but Kirby, we have more news from the Moore family, and that's head coach Kellen Moore, New Orleans Saints. I know you guys grew up your whole life when it started probably playing Tecmo Bowl and wanting to be coaches and players, and there's another one. Now Kellen's running the New Orleans Saints. What was it like for you to get to see your brother also live that dream, and hopefully he is going to get to see you live that dream moving forward as well? What was that like?
Yeah, incredible. It's kind of surreal. Obviously, there's a lot of noise out there, and one thing that stood out to me, where you pinch yourself a little bit, is Friday night. I got in late. We're hanging out in the hotel as a family, and right, TV's on. We're watching college basketball. Might have been Arizona, and right,
Yeah.
Adam Schefter, right, breaking news at the bottom, and right, we're just trying to catch up a little bit there as a family. But so much deserved, and really, I mentioned the perseverance and kind of finding their identity and the things that he's done at the different places, and just super excited for him to have this opportunity and lead the Saints.
Kirby Moore, and we're talking a little bit of Kellen Moore getting the head coaching job with the New Orleans Saints last week. It was surreal. Ballgame and myself sat here and watched it. We were obsessed. We did 1,000 segments on it last week. The whole city of Boise and Bronco Nation is obsessed by this. The one thing that you could probably answer this better than anybody, including your brother, is how is he processing this? Because he is so smart and so buttoned up and so organized and put together. But behind the scenes, I mean, he's got to be pinching himself. This is not only a great family moment, but what's it like behind the scenes in terms of how Kellen is processing this whole thing?
Yeah, I think you look at the timing and kind of the structure of how that occurred. There was a lot of balancing everything that was going on, and Kellen, from an organizational standpoint, right, working much later after things with the Eagles, and kind of he's just very diligent about going about this process, and I think he's putting an incredible staff together, and just really excited to see them have a great offseason.
Kirby, I think it was junior year at Prosser for Kellen where your father basically said, okay, you can call your own plays now. And a lot of people don't know that, but Kellen called every play, I believe, his junior and senior year. So he's been a play caller since high school, Kirby. What makes him so good at this? If that's his superpower, what have you seen over the years? Because, heck, you're one of the greatest high school wide receivers in this country's history. Look at the stats. Like, why is he so good at scheming, Kirby? What would you say to that?
Yeah, it definitely comes with repetition. I think he figures out really well what their personnel does well, tries to emphasize that. You've seen them evolve to even some quarterback run game this year, running the football a little bit more from an identity standpoint, play action. And there's naturally a feel from an offensive coordinator standpoint and calling those specific play actions, or right, the shot there on the change of possession on the deep post, and really good timing on that call, catching the Chiefs in kind of a shell coverage and hitting the big post to kind of put the dagger on it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, Kellen Moore now as the head coach. And, he's brilliant and creative and all the things that you want in a head coach, but the NFL is kind of a strange, cruel world sometimes. What's the one thing that you're most confident about your brother, especially in the short term? Because we all know about the project that's going on with the Saints, and this is going to be a patient rebuild a little bit. But what's going to be a strength right off the bat? Is it networking? Is it people? Is it coaching staff? Is it building the roster? Probably all the above.
Yeah, I think he's going to be genuine.
Okay.
And he knows exactly who he is and is comfortable in his skin. And you look at some of the different places that he's been and the microscope that they've been under, and he's going to lead exactly how he knows how to lead and in his own style. And I think players are going to attest to that and see that he can bring knowledge and make them better.
Kirby Moore with us, former Boise State wide receiver, Missouri offensive coordinator, getting ready for, I think, spring ball there in the SEC. Kirby, we won't keep you much longer, but if I was to say, hey, maybe Kellen's best fit is the NFL, and maybe Kirby's best fit is SEC or big-time college football, would you maybe agree with that statement, that maybe you feel college a little bit maybe better than, and Kellen feels the pros?
Yeah, they're different games, right? You look at the dimensions on the field, obviously just the whole calendar itself, and we've had an incredible experience here at Missouri, and we're playing in one of the best conferences in college football. Got spring ball coming up here March 1st, and I'm just really excited to put this kind of new group together and kind of start working ahead to the 25 season.
Kirby, one more quick question about Kellen and his staff, and I'm not asking you to I want to ask you about Doug Nussmeier, and not so much coming to the Saints because I don't think that that's official and probably not your place to talk, but they've been together for 3 or 4 or 5 years now. I covered Doug when I was a Vandal beat writer before I started covering Boise State, so I'm pretty aware of that situation. I think it's really cool that there's a Bronco and a Vandal, 3 different NFL stops, maybe one more stop, that these guys have kind of attached themselves to the hip. And I don't know how much you know Doug Nussmeier, but just talk about what you do know about that relationship and that working dynamic between these 2 kids from Idaho, college football in Idaho.
I know Nuss, really good football coach, right? Experiences in the SEC, experiences in the NFL, has, right, been a coordinator, been a quarterback coach, played in the NFL. So I think a huge part of being an offensive coordinator or a quarterback coach sometimes is being able to relate to the guy who's under center and making sure, you're aware of the experiences they're going through, how you see it, communication, and just my quick visits, whether it was in Dallas or when they were in LA or Philly. He's done a really good job of that, of just making sure it's always clear, concise, and repetitive.
And what is Doug's, if Kellen's superpower is scheming and play calling and shining for 3.5 hours on a Sunday afternoon, is Nussmeier's strength, quarterback developing, working specifically with the quarterback and that kind of thing Monday through Friday? What is his superpower?
Yeah, very quickly for me, I think from a fundamental standpoint, just making sure all that stuff is really clear. There's a lot of really good plays out there in college football and the NFL, but seeing Nuss, communication, the fundamentals, and all the little things, because, right, the little things turn into the big things in a hurry.
Yeah.
Kirby, you're 21-5 as the offensive coordinator at Missouri, and you can give Drink a little credit for that too, obviously, but that's the record you guys have had in the SEC in the 2 years you've been the offensive coordinator there. 21-5. Where your career is right now, I mean, you got to be satisfied with a lot of it, but obviously keep grinding and keep moving forward. Just how would you sum up your career in the 2 years that you've done and you've had at Missouri?
Very collaborative. Yeah, 21-5. The 10-1 and thing we probably take the most pride in is 10-1 in our last 11 one-score games. Very competitive conference. The environments are really cool when you get to visit those places, and then mostly all sold out. So my family and I, we have a lot to be thankful for here in Columbia, kind of a small town college feel, but people really care, right? We sold out our last 13 or 14 games. Very great group of players and coaches get to work with every day, and just kind of really looking forward to building this new team going into 25.
Won a Cotton Bowl, obviously, as well. And, Eli Drinkwitz, we like him here, too, in Boise. His first 3 years in Columbia, 5-5, 6-7, 6-7. Kirby Moore shows up 11-2, 10-3. So a lot of collaboration there and taking Missouri football to a level it had not been to in 10 years. Speaking of that, that's what Boise State went through this year, Kirby. The first trip back to a Fiesta Bowl in a decade, 2014. From what you've seen and who you've talked to, and I saw you last year, you were here hanging out with Miller during spring ball, collaborating, doing your thing. How impressed were you with Spencer Danielson and Boise State year one of what they were able to do this year in his era?
Great job by Spencer and that staff. You could just tell being there for spring ball, the vibe, the continuity, the relationships between players, coaches, and players. Loved watching their games this season and seeing what Genty did, the quarterback, and then that offensive staff. Know a ton of those guys, right? James Montgomery from my time at Fresno State, Nate Potter taking over, Matt Miller, Tim Keene, College of Idaho guy, right? Come on. And so just a lot of fun to watch, and you see there was always a belief that they were going to find a way to get it done.
Kirby, last question for me, and you just mentioned College of Idaho. It's part of your coaching stop and just skyrocketing from there. And you guys never like to ask these or answer these questions, so I always hesitate to ask. But, just in terms of your career aspirations, you're as competitive as anybody. You want to be at the top of your food chain in your profession no matter what it is. Well, what are your career goals?
Yeah, you always want to feel like you're progressing. and evolving as a coach. I think I've done that the last 2 years, and going into this season, new quarterback, couple new skill guys, and so focused on the task at hand. College football is evolving. I think being in this conference is rare, and so looking forward to just building the competition and kind of making new strides this season. And everyone's got the goals of being 1-0 each week and kind of getting to that playoff.
And eventually, I'm assuming you want to run your own program one day, right?
Yeah, I think naturally, right? And for me, though, it's so much focused on what's going on here at Missouri. And then, that stuff, the timing on that stuff, it'll happen how it's supposed to.
Kirby, we love talking to you. And I don't know if Prater, I got to tell you this. I wrote a letter last month to the National High School Football Hall of Fame, because that does exist. There is a high school Hall of Fame.
Okay.
And Kirby Moore's not in it.
Okay.
And I wrote a letter to the Hall of Fame. I mean, he has 304 catches, 4,900 receiving yards, and a national high school record, 95 receiving touchdowns. Him and his brother put on an absolute show. No high school player in the history of this country has caught more touchdown passes than Kirby Moore's 95. Prater, I hope they write me back.
For Kirby
Come
Moore,
on, Johnny. That's a long time ago.
Put him in the high school Hall of Fame.
That's funny, and Kirby's very uncomfortable about this. See what I have to put up with every day, Kirby? I just want to know simple, stupid things like who's the better offensive coordinator in the SEC, Kirby Moore or Bush Hampton?
Nice.
Couple Broncos in there, baby. Couple Broncos in the SEC, baby.
No question. I love talking to Bush. Obviously, we're they're not on the schedule from last year, this year, so he's definitely a guy you talk to. And hey, what'd you think about these guys, or from a personnel standpoint and scheme standpoint?
So you do guys have a collaborative working relationship, and you guys continue that conversation. I love that, because we love both of you guys, and the fact that both of you ended up in the SEC calling plays is a very cool story for us, dude.
Yeah, Bush is one of the best, right? I'll remember like it was yesterday. Bush was out the door at Boise. I was coming in as a true freshman. He helped me. He gave me his parking pass, right? So he helped me for the summer.
Nice,
and,
nice.
Made sure I had a good spot to park.
Oh, that's sweet, man. We're gonna remember that story. Kirby, we'll be in touch down the road, maybe July, something before you get going in camp. We always appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule a couple times a year to hang around with me and Prater. Appreciate you, bud.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you.
Well done, Kirby.